Yeah, so this is George Lees talking to Andy Devine in England. I always thought you were Glasgow.
I'm actually in Greece, George.
All right. So we're going to have a little chat about several things, including our mutual friend John Paterson being locked up in the jail for months and months and months without any justification for that. And this is now the revelations of Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton being in the same family tree. And I've known that for about 3 years now, since I was working in Kirknewton in Scotland. And there is the family bloodline tree. It's a massive link between the Rhineland in Germany and the Palatinate. And ironically, all of those places that are the hub for the family that is Donald's before they left Europe, they are from the Palatinate region, and the hometown for Donald is the place where Air Force One had to refuel in the movie. It's absolutely hilarious if you've been planning the future of the world for the last 500 years, and that is what the British Royals have been doing, and they don't get a mention, but this is the same story as How to Take Over the World, a Right Royal Con, and all the other family trees that are on my website will show you that Donald Trump's closest relatives are Heinz of the 57 varieties. That is the sauces that we used to put on our fish and chips. That is the Heinz family that are on the top 20 in Forbes. Yeah, the Bornemisser families of the Austria are on his listings, and that is also on my website. If you look up Donald Trump family tree, you'll find that there are 2 family trees, and you'll learn that even my employers that are the Butlins family, that is the Swinfords, were actually the jockeys that died at the age of 50 in that bloodline tree. That is Butlins. They are born leisure, and that is the joke, that they are the Bornemisser Forbes rich listers. And they sacked me on the River Tweed as a gillie because I got all of those details. They are the emperors of Austria. It's absolutely mountainous, and Hillary is on the left-hand side of the tree, and there is the Swinfords of Lancashire, because the man that unites both the families is John of Gaunt, and that is a kind of sinister thing, because he is... Can I just shrink your photo a wee bit, Andy? John of Gaunt is in the top right of that image. There he is. And there is... So he's got a concubine, and she was Joan Beaufort. Oh no, sorry, Catherine Swinford, Duchess of Lancaster. And there is the Duke of Lancaster, that is John of Gaunt. So this is the Wars of the Roses, red versus white. And that is Lancaster versus Yorkshire, effectively. And it goes on right through world history. And the Percys are there, right up at the top. There's the Poison Garden icon for them. And that is the movies that they made with Harry Potter. And all of them are the biggest rating movies that were ever made. And I was forced to go and watch them with my kids. And I used to fall asleep all of the time. But now that I understand the political basis for the movies, it's fascinating. So there is Bonnie Prince Charlie on the Donald Trump side of the tree. That's the Earls of Somerset. That is the south coast of England. And when the Norman conquerors came across, that is where most of the wealthy estates were for the Normans, and the Anglo-Saxons were absolutely massacred. Everybody that was alive up to the age of 8 in the male gender and the female gender, they were killed in case they started to have babies, when they started to ovulate or produce semen. And that is the Anglo-Saxon joke that is Robin Hood and the battles that they fought physically. but it is actually a genocide by the Norman conquerors in case the Anglo-Saxons are able to launch another revolutionary army again. And right up to Durham and the places that I used to work as an academic, that is how the whole of the Norman conquest happened. And it happened from Normandy. That is where the Percy family are from. And that is Perch on the north coast. And do you remember a programme called The Thunderbirds when you were a wee laddie? So that is the castle for the New World Order that is called, that was, what was the name of the castle for the Thunderbirds, or the home base? Tracy Island. So that is the launch of the Norman conquest, and at the same time the Norwegian Vikings are coming from the north, and that is my best mate who runs my bank accounts, a man called Fred Goodwin. That is Godwin that led the Norman conquest. It's a fucking massive steal for centuries, and they're allowed to get away with it because they're now the bosses at NATO's armies. So there is, Donald is on the right hand side. He's a draft dodger, as you'll see later on. His family left Europe and those places in Alsace. So James Henry Fetzer, that used to make videos with me and was on my Facebook pages with all the Dietrich family women, all of them have bailed out now because they know and understand the whole of Alsatian history, and that is where the Heinz families and the Forbes rich listers are from, on the other less pictures on the other family tree, but that is Heinz and all of the rich listers. And so there's Beaufort, Countess of Westmoreland. You've seen the Wars of the Roses. There is Earl of Somerset. That is the Norman conquerors from France, right along the south coast of England. And that, for a long time, we used to have a political activist who was called Kevin Cahill. Have you heard of him? So when I used to make videos with Peter Eyre and Gordon, they're now, sadly, both of them have passed on, but they
I mean, I know Peter Eyre, but there is still a question mark over Gordon, because we haven't seen anything to do with the funeral.
All right, I would not be at all surprised. Gordon's kind of dodgy for various reasons that I haven't got time to explain here, but he used to talk to Kevin Cahill, and he is actually the financial advisor to the Queen of England, and the Cahills are on that Somerset coast, and that is the richest place in England at that time, and the Gaunts are down there too, because that is them immediately after they came and the French mixed in with them. And so Somerset is one of the richest places in the world, and they've all got massive mansions, and that is Kevin Cahill pretending to be a political activist like you and me as the advisor on finance to Queenie. Right then, let's work our way down the blood.
Just to recap on Jim Fetzer, just as John got arrested, as John was kidnapped, the first time on July the 2nd, 2019, it's the same day, coincidentally, as John Wanoa. I was on the 7th of the 7th, so the 7th of July. John had already organised a meeting with Jim Fetzer to do an interview, and I ended up doing the interview. I'd forgotten about it. John was still incarcerated in Eastbourne Bodiam Mental Health Ward. John Wanoa was in Middlemore Mental Health Ward, and I did an interview with Jim Fetzer with John Wanoa John had access to his phone, so he could do an interview whilst from the hospital itself, and while John was in there. And I've since then there was going to be another meeting with Jim Fetzer, but John also, bear in mind, the second time that they kidnapped John was on the 5th of November 2019, when he was handing in a 100-page document to the Ministry of Defence, which not only did it pertain the evidence of the Royal Commission with what John's been doing with Edward William Ellis, but in there also was the documents from John Wanoa, and John Paterson was abducted, again kidnapped, before.
So if that was the fall of last year, that is the last time I made videos with him, and that was them that got sent to BitChute, and you helped me interpret that because I'd never used BitChute before. But we were able to get the truth out about the New World Order and the Committee of 300 and how the British Royals have got, they've got 13 people on it, and they get, the Queenie is she's called, she's the chief ranking Mason, and she's a woman, allegedly. That's the Queen of England today. She is the person that runs the Committee of 300, and she's got an Italian name that is kind of menacing to make everybody scared, but I can't remember what it is. But that is the British Royals, that is all the Bromstein families, and that is the Richlisters that are on this family tree. Yeah, it's absolutely stunning. That is the Duke of Bavaria, is right at the top, and it's Prince Philip, Prince Charles, Tony Blair, all the folk that are Charlemagne Prize winners. That means that they're serial killers in all the wars. It's absolute.
So that was the same time that you had asked John to go and get access to the book.
Yeah, so that was Greg Hallett's book that is now no longer in print because it's so embarrassing. What they did was that the Rothschild family raped and pillaged Queen Victoria, and all the European nobility became bastards of Rothschild. And that is the decimation of the European nobility, and that's why the book has been burnt and destroyed all over the world, and it's called How to Take Over the World, a Right Royal Con, with Adolf Hitler on the front page, with his cousin, the full cousin that is the Queen of England. It's actually on that photo down at the bottom. So there is Hitler was a British agent, but the one next to it is How to Take Over the World, a Right Royal Con, and that's why Greg Hallett has been disappeared. He's the most honest and brave historian I've ever met, and he was my Facebook friend for over 2 years, and he used to explain in person how I asked him who owns the media in New Zealand, and he said, George, you're not really a very bright person. Nobody in Britain, nobody in this world owns anything in New Zealand other than the Queen of England. And that was, he had 10 death threats before he left there, and I'm not at all surprised that he's no longer with us. He was absolutely outspoken, and his colleague is a woman called, or she's alleged to be his colleague. I believe that she is one of the assassin team. Her name is Lawrence de Mello. She's given me death threats since I started to talk about Greg Hallett being murdered by the syndicate that are now publishing his books and profiting from the less important ones. That is, Hitler was a British agent, Stalin was a British agent, and all of them are now being sold, and Lawrence de Mello and her spy master, I believe that is, you remember the spy masters, that is the families that were the spies in World War II, and they're legendary for their storytelling, but I can't remember the name of him. They're linked into the Ian Fleming syndicate, and many of the videos that Greg Hallett made were on how to escape from the bunker, and that is the River Spree tunnels, and the massive massacres the folk that were in the region that is Potsdamer. That is where David Bowie sings about walking the dead, and they used to have to, so that they could survive through the air raids, they had to go into the subterranean tunnels that were covered by a lake, and that is the drowning of all the civilians in those tunnels to let Adolf and Fleming away with their float planes, and that is it's the sea that is just to the south of Berlin. I can't remember what the name of it is, but that is the whole of the story, including the killing of Hitler's doppelgangers. They all had bad teeth, and Greg had all the photos of the corpses and things that were given them by the Stasi. And the name of the war spy is Crichton. Have you heard of him? He's a legend in the authoring of the World War I and what happened there, and World War II. And that is Chris Crichton, I think his name was. So he's called the Spy Master. And I think it's his relatives that are now, he's dead, but his relatives are now in league with Lawrence de Mello. She's a registered British journalist. Yeah, and when I kept telling her the stories about Greg Hallett, explaining how she, as a practicing witch, gave him kidney stones, and that he had to go to the hospital to recover from those kidney stones at the same time as Prince Philip was in the same hospital. That's how they cover up all the news releases. And she's a really beautiful woman, which is part of the reason why I got in touch with her on Facebook. But she now claims that she's of Norfolk too, and that is down where John used to live. That is the Howards of Norfolk, and that is the families that are they run shareholdings on their cathedral income. It's totally fucking crooked. And she is a practicing British journalist, and she's a practicing witch, and all of that was told in Greg Hallett's massively explosive videos. They all used to take at least an hour and a half to 2 hours to get made, and every one of them in the old days on his website, it was followed up by an archive. Every word that they used in the discussion was replayed and printed with beautiful photos like those ones. But that is the original Greg Hallett's website. Now when you go to the websites and you click on the videos, none of them will play. It's totally crooked. And so shall we go back to do you want to talk more about the politics of who's in and who's out now? Because it's really interesting.
Yeah, because right now, what just come across my head then is like, because I remember, because obviously you've got Donald Christ Trump and you've got Greg Christ Hallett, and they're both claiming to be the Christ. So are they one and the same working together? Because obviously...
No, Hallett's got dozens of doppelgangers. There was one in Coldstream where I'm living now, and he was just an Asian visitor. But I actually confronted him in the Indian restaurant, had a blether with him, and he's quite an innocent guy, but he was an absolute dead ringer for Greg Hallett. And I used to talk to Greg on Skype, and he used to send me all his PDFs and things, which is why I'm still able to play the videos that no one else can, because I've got them saved on my computer archives. And do you believe in reincarnation and body doubles?
I certainly believe in reincarnations, for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And body doubles, I'm pretty, obviously with the amount that Hitler had. In fact, actually, George, because the way I'm seeing it right now is the complete world is the stage, and even though that what's looking like brilliant with what Q and Trump's doing right now, it's just a part of the stage, and the people that are going to be they're just doubles anyway. So I think they've all got doubles. All these people, all the all the main players have got actors. They've all got their doubles to be that are going to take the fall. That's just my opinion.
So Trump he's very, very close to, on the genealogical family trees, to Henry VIII. They're only 5 cousins apart. And that is the same for George W. Bush. And right through world history, the colonial systems that lead to the taxing of the invaded countries, that's what happened in Palestine, and all of it lasts for 50 years or more. And in the American Revolutionary Wars and things, that was the same deal, that you had to pay the taxes to the Queen of England for her cavalries taking over that country, and every one of the pagan Indians and the nations there are no longer with us. Or if they are, they're living in squalor. That is for the folk singers, America's native sons. Yet none of them are left alive. Absolutely ruthless. And there are the usual suspects. That is the Rothschild hexagram. So when you look down on Hillary's side of the family tree, you get a few Scottish people to begin with. Remember, they were both married to John of Gaunt, 1st Duke of Lancaster, and Catherine Swynford, Duchess of Lancaster. So there's Eleanor Percy, that is the Harry Potter families, and there's the Poison Garden icon for them. There is Henry Percy, 3rd Earl of Northumberland, Margaret Gascoigne, which is why Paul is a drunkard. The football player, you remember him? Gaza?
Yeah.
So that is their covers for everything that happens. And in Newcastle Football Club, Alan Shearer is the cover for the takeover by the Germans in 1714. And that is Dorothea Jordan, lived in Ford and Etal, and she's a concubine. She had 25 babies by those German invaders, and if anything then happens to the real ones, they can take over on the throne, like Adolf Hitler's body doubles might have done in the bunkers. And all those conspiracies to murder him are the families that were Tom Cruise's movies. I forget what the family is that tried to execute Hitler, but the movies are brilliant. Valkyrie, but I can't remember the name of Tom Cruise's family in that movie. They were, oh God. But yeah, so that's the Percys that run the Poison Garden, and they murdered their own brother. His name was Henry Percy. He was the elder brother, and they gave him an overdose of the amphetamine that is NMDA, and that is the same year that Madonna, who's in the family trees for the American presidents, made the MDNA album, and that is the year that the Poison Garden was launched. None of it is a coincidence. That is how they got the title. This is the world-owning bloodline tree. That's Percy of Alnwick, and they're still there.
When you come to understand them more and more, there is no mistakes.
No, it's all premeditated, and it's really, really clever, which is why I used to like making videos with Fetzer, because he was classy and he knew all the history. I told him that the Bushes had to change their name. They went to America in 1937 in a thing called the Shin, and that is them becoming the Fourth Reich out of Germany in 1937 and taking over in the White House in the following few decades. And that is the families. All of them have nicknames, and the families are legendary for being comedians and things, but they're all double agents, and that happens right through all the wars. And all the inmates in the camps are able to escape, and then they become the double agents in the enemy's side. And every place that has got a golf course in the Scottish borders where I live used to be a prison camp. And that is them. They then married the local women. And my friend that actually runs this hotel, he tells me that he can remember that the women used to get inseminated by the men through the barbed wire fences. And that is the future lovers and parents. Oh, here's the man that made that statement. And every golf course in the region is now full of those little corrugated iron huts. That was the prison camps for all the people. And I don't know how they got prisoners, because the only folk that got this far in the war, oh yeah, the Polish migrants. But some of them might have been airmen that were crashed and still alive. But I don't know, most of them would have been sent there, like the Godfather story, on the massive German ships. So that was Kaiser Wilhelm I and II that got the founders of the Federal Reserve banks into America in time. That was right in the middle of World War I. And so that they could launch World War I and make it look real, they had to sink the Titanic and the Lusitania first. It's absolutely massive. So there is Gascoigne. That's why he's a celebrity still. Margaret Ogle.
Is Gascoigne still alive?
Yeah, he's still alive. I don't think he's anything to do with football anymore.
No, I would say last time I saw him, there was nothing left of him. It was a total.
Yeah, that's right. They've got conspiracies, and their love lives are followed. He was allegedly the lover of the Duchess of Roxburgh, and she's the sister of the Duke of Westminster, who's Britain's richest man, and he's married to one of the Russian Tsars that all got gunned down by the British people that went as Marx and Engels to train as socialists, and that is the gunning down of all of the Tsar's family, and I think 5 of the 7 were girls. It's all absolutely ruthless. So now Grosvenor's wife, Natalia Hamilton, I think she is, she's a beautiful woman, but they are the surviving relatives of the Romanov Tsars. It's absolutely tragic that Rothschilds have taken over everything on this earth, and they're the only ones on this earth that never get accused of war crimes. Yet they are the owners of IG Farben, but for a laugh, they got Prince Bernhard, the Nazi, to take over as the chief executive at that company, and they have the capacity to kill every person on this earth 15 times over with their nerve gases. Yeah, and that is then the launch of those technologies into Portendown. The head of the MOD in Britain is a German. Boris is a German. He's Boris Pfeffel. That is, for a laugh, the Pied Piper of Hamelin, and leading your troops to their deaths like rats. It's absolutely crooked, and that is why the coronavirus was launched, because I launched the stories about that, and it's all to do with the coronation year for Prince Philip and Queenie. So Prince Philip's sister died in a plane crash when she went to visit Adolf Hitler in Berlin the same year the war started. Yeah, and that is then the launch of the BBC happened within a few years of that, and the rest of those videos are on the BBC, and the trivial characters. So I've just learned the history of Israel is that do you understand why the zebra colours are used so often?
The black and white.
The stripy things.
Well,
it's in the Holy Land's strife that we get to at the bottom of the page for this, but that is the Pi Piso family that faked the Bible, and that is the Pi pajamas for the death camps. It's really fucking hilarious that you can kill the Jews in the stripy uniforms and name it after the pajamas. And that is the author of the Bible was Arius Piso, and that is the naming of the police and the prisons. And all of it, that when Greg Hallett told the story, the police create misery, the Jews create misery, and all of it is the taking of Palestine and all of that land that used to belong to the Arabs, and then giving it to the Jews. And the Jews are Ashkenazi Jews. They're nothing to do with Jerusalem. They're from Ukraine. It's a massive steal, and that's why the Rothschilds are now the emperors of the world. So let's go down below Margaret Ogle and see who else we can find.
Do you want me to which screen do you want?
I've just archiving it on my little camera, but I've got a picture of you at the top right. So there's Gascoigne, and then her descendant was Margaret Ogle. Now that is the Ogilvy families that were Alexandria, the princess that used to live in Glamis Castle, and she was married to the actors. Angus Ogilvy married her after she had become a widow, and that is the making of the movies that were the Saint on the telly. You remember that? Are you old enough?
Yeah, remember the Saint, yeah.
Yeah, and that is the actor that played Longshanks in the movie. I forget what his name was, but that is the Ogilvy family. I think they're
In Braveheart you're talking about.
Yeah, so what was the English king? The actor?
Oh, what was his... No, I don't know.
But it's all the same family. So that is Ogilvy, and she's the Duke of Kent's family, and that is the massive linkage to Europe again. The whole of it is just bringing in the European monarchs. And at that time she was 6th claimant to the throne, but now because of the Queen's babies and Greg Hallett's bravery to reveal that all of them, so only 2 of Prince Philip and the Queen's babies were sired by them, because the others, the younger ones, Andrew and the rest, were sired by Lord Porchester and Lord Plunkett, and they were bought into that by coercion, because they were given roles as drug runners to fund the IRA and the massive strife in other countries to keep the Queen and her family out of the firing line. It's totally ruthless. And that was Greg Hallett's storytelling again. So here's the Stuarts. That's Bonnie Prince Charlie, Elizabeth Gordon, Countess of Sutherland, which is the most not.
I take it you're sharing a picture of something. Do you want to share the screen so we can see what you're? I can't see.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah. Please have a go at that. Can you?
Let me stop sharing, then you should be able to.
Oh, sorry. So this is my website.
Yeah.
I reckon if you.
Okay, then I'm going to your website. Then I can go on to that. 1 second. Then let me just get rid of this picture. This other picture. Let me go to.
So if you look up Bonnie Prince Charlie on the website, you might find the other family tree, which has got all the Forbes Rich Lister families on it, and that is Jim Fetzer. So Setzer is the first son on the family tree. 1 letter change, and Jim has now bailed out of all the social media. The Dietrich women have also bailed out. They were fabulous, and they were directly descended to the Hercules Dietrich tribes of the Alps. That is Hercules Elton John's Dietrich tribes. It's a massive mafia operation. So you've got the family tree now.
Yeah, this is your Pastor needs the revelations to the website, your website. So
Yeah.
which one did you want me to share?
So just look up Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton family tree, and there's a little square box at the top right corner.
Yeah, Donald Trump family tree, yeah?
Yeah. And you'll get the first two options should be access to the one with the pictures or the one with the Forbes rich listers on it.
Donald Trump's very peripheral family tree without Trump fellow.
Has that got pictures on it?
They're just links at the moment. Let me just click on it. This has gone to, yeah, there's some pictures. Can you see this, George?
No, so there I've now gone back to, so the title for the other one is Donald Trump's very peripheral family tree without the Drumtheller, Pfeiffer, Rockefeller, Mackay, Percy, Bush. But there is the other family tree now on my screen, and that is Trump in the Palatinate in Germany, is a German-American family. Johann Philipp Trump from Kahlstadt, that is where Air Force One had to refuel. And that is the Warner Brothers that are the maker of the Warner movies in America. They went to America in World War One and they made the Air Force One movie. And all of it is they were 4 chief master masons in Hollywood running the whole of the Nazi mafia right through the wars. So there is the Trump family tree and without pictures. And let me just read you the first few names. Setzer, I believe, is the first one. There it is. Johann Philipp Trump married Juliana Maria Rodenroth Clinton. This is President Kohl next. Johann Sebastian Trump, 1699 to 1756, married Susanna Margrethe. President Kohl. K-O-H-L. There is Johann Paul Trump, 1727 to 1792, married Maria Elisabetha Setzer, Jim. Next one, Charlotte Louise Trump, 1789 to 1833, married Johann Georg Heinz of the Forbes rich list. Yeah, then there's another 2 Heinzes below him. Then there's Johannes Trump, Friedrich Trump, Maria Catherine Trump, Johannes Trump, and there's nothing sensational until we get beyond 1900. Wepler, Walter, Kylie. Oh, that'll be the cover for Kylie Minogue. But there's Fred Christ Trump, his dad, 1905 to 1999, real estate developer, married Mary MacLeod, 1912 to 2000, and that is the Scottish Highlands that everybody celebrates because we've got a celebrity that lived there. Yeah, and him and his dad with that woman, they ran brothels in the gold rush to, I can't mind what the name is, but that's on the one with the pictures. Let's go back to that, it's clearer. So do you see all of those Forbes rich listers all lined up in the first few generations before Donald pops in? So there's the bigger picture again with the photos. There's Mary Queen of Scots getting her head lopped off, and all of that is the massive religious strife that meant that if you wanted to be a queen or a king, you had to be a Protestant, otherwise you would be beheaded, and that is Mary Queen of Scots getting it lopped off. And there are the Mackays of the Outer Isles. That becomes Mackay in the Porridge comedies. That is the jailer in the Porridge comedies, with Ronnie Barker, whose family were actually part of converting the Gutenberg Bible into English. That's Ronnie Barker's role in the comedies. And there is Hitler was a British agent, How to Take Over the World, and there is the first cousin of Adolf, Queen Elizabeth II, making her English salute. She, in more pressured periods, like when I started to release the whole of her bloodline, that was the weekend that they tried to section me under the Mental Health Act. But my website saved me. Ask all your fans to come and have a look at it, and you'll see the whole of the mafia operation that I've been fighting against as a homeless person for 7 years now. It's longer than that.
You've been under mass attack as well. I mean, they've stripped you of everything you've got.
Yeah, I used to be a 6-figure salary earner, and that's why my wife from Chipping Norton married me. She was trained in MI6, and I believe that they might even have topped her to get to me. Her brother is wandering around this town like a paraplegic. He's got no memory of anything that has ever happened in his life, and that will be the Rothschilds taking away his family's wealth. Yeah, and let's go down to the bottom. There's the GI joke. Say, dodged the draft for sleeping around was my personal Vietnam. He dodged the draft for Vietnam. And he was a brothel owner in the Yukon Gold Rush. I don't know so much about that, but there is the sign on the brothel. And there is the tragedy that I'm now looking at, and Sean Maguire and I make videos on that on Sunday if I live long enough. That is Syria and Lebanon and the partitioning of Palestine in 1948. And there is President Harry Truman. He is related to the Schindlers. That's why the Dietrich family left my Facebook pages.
Steve, what was the red dress for in the Schindler's List, George? Can you light on that?
So Little Red, she's the icon for, I forget what the individual story for her was, but she's protected from any form of damage, and the actress that played that role used to travel on the buses with me into Dundee city centre. She was an absolutely fabulous person, but I don't quite understand the whole story. But when you realise that that symbol there means that they've converted Jerusalem to Judaism, it's nothing to do with the Rothschild family's original launch of the Ashkenazi Jews from the region that is Ukraine and everything that is linked to Russia and Macedonia and all those massive Asian places that were conquered by Genghis Khan. And even in Genghis Khan's day, his second-in-line administrator was called Hagen. The boss at the White House that is second in line for the administration is called Hagen. In the Godfather movie, the conciliaro that is the negotiator for the Godfather is Hagen. And in the Gladiator movie, the big German that tests the gladiator's food, can you guess what his name is? Hagen. That is how the world is run.
So, I know, I mean, when I came to start realising what the films were, you know, there's so much more to films than people even give a clue to. The information that's in those films is phenomenal, and people just see it as a film.
Yeah, so do you understand Air Force One now? The hero that is the... I love him because he was kind of like a communist, you see. And he's got the gun to Harrison Ford's head. And the mother of Harrison Ford's wife and the daughter are in the negotiations about how he's going to get his head blown off. But the baddie that had the gun to his head is Gary Oldman. and that is the Goldman banks that are Goldman Sachs. That is the whole of the Star Wars team are the global mafia, and Harrison Ford has actually visited the concert venues in this tiny little town, and he's had several near-death plane crash accidents in his life. And when you look at Bin Laden had 13 brothers, or 12 brothers, and 13 was him, but 5 of them died in plane crashes. And that is why I believe strongly in the gods. And